Thank you for being patient with us. We're going to go ahead and get started. It's 6:03. We're call to order our meeting of City of Crescent City. And if you would please call the roll.
Councilmember Fallman?
Here.
Councilmember Greeno?
Here.
Councilmember Keim?
Here.
Pro Tem Short?
Here.
Mayor Enscore?
I am here. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Councilman Fallman, would you please lead us?
Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Council, do we have anything to report out of closed session?
No, we do not have any action to report.
Very good, thank you. We're going to move into public comment. Any member of the audience is invited to address the City Council on any matter that is within the jurisdiction of the City of Crescent City. Comments of public interest or matters appearing on the agenda are accepted. Note, however, that the Council is not able to undertake extended discussion or act on non-agendized items. Such items can be referred to staff for appropriate action, which may include the placement on a future agenda. All comments should be directed towards the entire Council, and any comments that are not at the microphone are out of order and will not be part of the public record. After receiving recognition from myself, please state your name and city or county residency for the record, and please limit public comment to 3 minutes. You'll also be given another opportunity to spend 3 minutes to discuss specific items on the agenda when they come. Do we have any general public comment tonight? Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Monday, May 1st, I came to you, and I am Roger Gitlin. I'm a resident of the city, and I am here as a private citizen. I want to underscore that. And I came on Monday, May 1st, to ask you some questions about the funding of our police department. We currently have 6 officers, and we need 6. And you're apparently, for reasons that are far more complicated than I can go into in 3 minutes, it's very difficult to hire police officers in Crescent City. So I ask you again, and I don't want a personal answer to me, what I'd like you to do is please tell the residents, the citizens, the voters of the City of Crescent City about the overage of the savings, which I'm guesstimating to be in the neighborhood of between $325,000 and $350,000 for the 6 officers who are as yet not hired and probably won't be. Where are those funds being reallocated, if at all? Otherwise, we have a very heavy and fat general fund budget. So I would ask that your finance director, if not tonight, but at a scheduled time, to please let me know so you can report where these funds are as we speak. The public has a right to know. It's good disclosure. And of course, I know you're involved with budget discussions this time. I hope you'll seriously consider the staffing of a 1/2-time code enforcement officer to help Mr. Taylor in his overtasked position as chief planner, so those areas can be identified and help cleaned up in the city. Thank you very much.
Before we take more public comment, I will just make a very general statement. We are not down 6 officers. We are down 3. The majority of what would be the savings, if you would call it that, of being short-staffed has been eaten up in overtime hours. If you look at our agenda and you look at our financial statements, you can see every 2 weeks when we publish those, the amount of overtime that it's costing us being short. So we're not down 6, we're down 3, and we're not banking a whole lot of money because we're paying an enormous amount of overtime to cover the citizens of Crescent City with making sure that we keep staffing, and our police department has done a fantastic job of doing that and working extremely long hours to provide for our citizenry. So that may not be the full answer, but those are the facts. We're down 3 officers. The vast majority of the money that would be saved if we had all those positions filled right now is being eaten up in overtime. So, more public comment. Yes?
Good evening. My name is Terry Sapahan. I'm the director for the True North Organizing Network. We are a faith-based, multi-race organization, nonprofit that's working with communities throughout the Redwood region, and we have an office here in Crescent City. I see on your agenda that you have discussion on Senate Bill 54. We are in strong support of Senate Bill 54, but that's not what I wanted to talk to you about. I wanted to talk to you about a letter of support for our immigrant community here in Del Norte, and I would like you to consider it. I don't know if I should give you the letter now, but I've made copies for all of you.
You can give it to the clerk, and she will make sure that we get that.
As I've said to the Del Norte County Board of Supervisors, unless you're a Native American from this region, we are all immigrants, and we're looking to find a way, not only with the Del Norte County Board of Supervisors, but the City Council here for Crescent City, as well as other rural governments and tribal governments, to do a better job of fighting the negative rhetoric and the fear that undocumented people and immigrants have, that specifically we're concerned with the Redwood region, Del Norte County and Humboldt County, of doing a better job to provide positive symbols and positive words for our immigrant people. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the letter. All right. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Don Yahtzee. I live in Del Norte County, although if you looked at our house, you would think it was in the city. I am the former fiscal director of Rural Human Services. As such, I was involved in much of the alleged actions that you have no doubt read about in the local newspaper. Given the potential negative economic impact that the recent news articles and sexual harassment lawsuits regarding RHS could have on Crescent City and Del Norte County, and the fact that the city of Crescent City has provided and may still be providing funding to RHS, I would like to suggest that the members of the City Council appoint an independent party to review the actions of Scott Feller and the Board of Directors of Rural Human Services and take appropriate action to minimize the potential negative impact that these news articles and lawsuits could have on the economy of Crescent City and Del Norte County. In the past, grants at RHS have provided millions of dollars a year to the local economy. The City Council needs to do everything in its power to ensure that these funds will continue in the future. Thank you for considering my suggestion.
Thank you.
Thank you, Don.
Do we have any other general public comment tonight? Seeing none, then we will close public comment and come back. I do have two items that are emergency items that I would invite the council to consider placing on tonight's agenda. One is we just had a brief conversation about our police force. Both of these came to my attention after the posting of the agenda. I was not aware, and part of that may be because of just lack of communication with our police department right now. But today began Police Week. Our president did proclaim today as a police officers Memorial Day. And so I have a proclamation that I would like to place upon our agenda. I provided that to the council as an emergency item, and I would need a motion and a second and a vote to put that on our agenda.
Just the one item, sir?
I have two, but we need to treat them separately.
Certainly, okay.
The motion, excuse me, the motion needs to include the finding that the subject came to your attention after the posting of the agenda and that it requires action before the next council meeting. So based on that finding, you'd like to add it to the agenda.
Okay, I move that we include this Police Week proclamation because it came to our attention after we posted the agenda for this meeting, and because it is effective for this week and will not, next meeting will be too late. I move that we make that an emergency item on our agenda.
I'll second that.
Okay. Do we have any public comment about this proclamation? We will take it later, and you'll have another opportunity. Very good. Then would you please poll the vote on this item?
Councilmember Keim?
Yes.
Councilmember Greeno?
Yes.
Councilmember Fallman?
Yes.
Pro Tem Short?
Yes.
Mayor Enscore?
Yes. I have another item, and it is a letter of support to Jeannie Townsend, Clerk of the Board for the State Water Resource Control Board. We received an email today regarding some change in the classification for disadvantaged communities when it comes to applying for funding. And because of the urgency of this, they need comments to be presented to them by June 5th. We will not have met again by that time, I don't believe. And so we have a support letter that I would like to add to our agenda tonight because of the same reason that we mentioned for the other item. And if you'd be willing to consider this letter, we will actually vote on the letter later, but if you would place this letter for consideration for discussion tonight, I would take a motion for that, to that regard.
I move that we include this comment letter for the 2017 intended use plan for the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund, including that in tonight's agenda because by next meeting it will be too late for the comment period, and also because we found this necessary since the posting of the agenda.
All right, very good. I have a motion, I have a second. Is there any public comment about including this item as emergency item on our agenda tonight? Very good. We'll take those up later in our meeting. Thank you very much. We'll go on, and we have a couple of reports and presentations to make tonight. Our first is from Del Norte Ambulance. And so, welcome, Mr. Pritchett.
Mayor Enscore, members of the council, staff, guests. Each year, Del Norte Ambulance comes before our community's elected leaders to update everyone regarding EMS service in Del Norte County and in Crescent City. And like many other industries, we are seeing rapid changes, some positive, some not so positive, and some changes we don't have a clue on how they are going to impact our company or this community. However, we believe that the overall EMS service in Del Norte County, first responders, law enforcement, fire, ambulance, hospital, has never been better. Departments train and work together more than ever, putting the needs of patients first. Crescent City and all of Del Norte County is well served by the professionals and the many volunteers who respond 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, in all weather, sometimes risking life and limb. Now, last year, you may remember that Del Norte Ambulance purchased 4 Lucas CPR devices for local fire departments, including Crescent City Fire and Rescue. Since then, they've been deployed numerous times to provide high-quality extended CPR. Now, our CEO, Ron Sandler, has been repeatedly asked why he would spend $50,000 on something our company can't bill for. I was one of those people that asked that. And something that financially really doesn't benefit Del Norte Ambulance. Well, I'm going to tell you a story. In March of this year, members of the Fort Dick Fire Department arrived on the scene of an unresponsive male. They quickly identified the need and deployed the Lucas device for an individual that was clinically dead. Del Norte Ambulance crew soon arrived. Chris Hunt and Devin Degler performed life support interventions with the fire department prior and during the transport. The device performed CPR in that individual for approximately 30 minutes. Last Tuesday, at the Del Norte County Board of Supervisors meeting, that patient, Mr. Darrell Collins, and his family attended the meeting, got to meet and hug those individuals that saved his life, and that's why Ron Sandler purchased those units. And we believe that is the evidence of a high quality of service Crescent City and Del Norte County receives from its first responders and its medical professionals. Now, earlier this spring, one of our own was selected as an American Ambulance Association Star of Life. He joined our organization 2 years ago. He is a Pro's Pro, an individual with a career of service in the emergency field, selected as a National Star of Life as Del Norte Ambulance's own Lyle Armstrong. We're very pleased about that. One of Del Norte Ambulance's best advances has been the expansion of our training program, thanks in part to our training coordinator, Tom Phillips. Among other things, we now do more pre-employment testing, ensuring that our hires are the best available to respond to our family and to yours. We do more skills testing and skills training than ever before. We brought in Wizard Education from Arizona for a 6-day extensive training for our crews late last year that was well received. One of the things Mr. Sandler is stressing on his management team is to find ways to be solutions. For example, our operations manager, Charles Tweed, is an active member of the Overutilizers Committee as they try to find ways to treat individuals who use the EMS system repeatedly and often without good medical causes. I'm very active with the Healthcare Pathways program, where young people are given exposure in our community in the wide spectrum of job opportunities in the healthcare field. But not everything is perfect. The ambulance industry in California especially is facing twin challenges. First, expenses continue to climb. With a yearly wage increase mandated over the next few years, we're going to see our company payroll climb dramatically. And of course, our suppliers are facing the same problem. Costs are going to go up. Worker comp rates continue to increase despite our very, very good safety record, and liability insurance never goes down. Second problem we face is the battle with Medicare and Medi-Cal over reimbursement, specifically of long-distance mental health claims. You may remember I talked about this last year. Medicare and Medi-Cal have tried something new. They are now paying us for the first 249 miles we take a patient, a mental health patient, to a facility. In other words, they'd like us to drop this patient off approximately 10 miles shy of Reading. We're not going to do that, but it continues to be quite the battle. And of course, California's Medi-Cal program continues to reimburse ambulance companies at about 20% of what it actually costs us to run a call. Last year, the legislature came up with a program supported by the California Ambulance Association where ambulance companies would actually tax ourselves. That money would then go to Washington, D.C. as part of the Medicaid program and then come back to us threefold to help raise the rates for reimbursement for Medicaid patients. It received strong bipartisan support by both Republicans and Democrats in the House and the Assembly. Unfortunately, it was vetoed by Jerry Brown. It's going to be reintroduced in a slightly altered version, and we'll be coming back before you asking for your support once the AB number is certified, and hopefully we can get this problem solved once and for all. The other situation Del Norte Ambulance and others in our industry face is that we don't know what's going to happen with Obamacare, Trump care, Paul Ryan care, and Mitch McConnell care, whatever it's going to be. Everything's in limbo right now, and so it really leaves us a bit of a struggle trying to do long-term planning. But I do want to tell you that if any member of the council wishes, they are welcome to come visit us at Del Norte Ambulance. If anybody would like to ride along with our crew, we'd be happy to arrange that. You can contact us 24/7 if you have any questions. Speaking of questions, if you have any, I'd be happy to try to answer them at this time.
All right, council, do you have any questions for Mr. Pritchett? We do not. Thank you very much. We appreciate the services of Del Norte Ambulance. I pray that nobody in our audience needs it, but if we do, we are so very thankful that you are there for us. So,
Just call 911.
thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right, we have a second presentation from Randy Hooper to talk to us about groundwater.
And I think we should have a PowerPoint for this also. Kimmy, Christina, no? Eric? Okay.
We'll draw pictures.
Well, you guys got to see it already.
You did.
as Mayor Inscore introduced, my name is Randy Hooper. I'm with the county's Community Development Department. It's a pleasure to be with the council this evening. I'm here at the request of city staff, as this is an issue that affects both the city, the county, and various community services districts. And I do appreciate the coordination that we've had with city staff, in particular, Mr. Weir and Mr. Ohmsberg. Also appreciate Mayor Inscore and Councilwoman Kine participating in the meeting with the Board of Supervisors last week. In particular, the comments from Mayor Inscore, which highlighted the working together approach that we've taken with this project that I think can't be overstated in terms of how important that's going to be when this proceeds through the process with the Department of Water Resources and the Water Resources Control Board. So in the absence of the PowerPoint presentation, I'm going to kind of wing it here. If I gloss over anything, there's a lot to cover. Feel free to slow me down, ask any questions at any point in the process if anything occurs to you. So recognizing we do have some new council members, similar to the situation with the Board of Supervisors, we did have some new members of the Board of Supervisors who really hadn't been exposed to this SGMA, or Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, topic as it was initially being put into law by the legislature and the governor. I'll kind of start with a bit of an overview on the topic, then we'll get into what our next steps collectively appear like they're going to be. So to precipitate the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, there was a previous set of regulations referred to as the California State Groundwater Elevation Monitoring Program, pardon me, CASGM. It's going to be a bit of alphabet soup tonight. I apologize for that. But what the CASGM program did is it looked at every groundwater basin throughout the entire state of California. It looked at various factors within that basin, population and population growth, reliance on groundwater. And what it did is it resulted in a prioritization of those groundwater basins. And so it appeared to be a bit innocuous. They came out with designations like, your groundwater basin is medium priority, or, perhaps maybe more alarmingly to some of the basins in the Central Valley in Southern California, your basin is high priority, or very, very high priority. The Smith River Basin was categorized in the middle. It was considered to be a medium priority basin. And again, that appears to be kind of innocuous at face value. After the fact, what we discovered was that the basin prioritization would lead to actual management requirements under the subsequent rule that went into effect, SGMA. And that is kind of the way the state operates, for better or worse, probably more for worse. Hey, there it is.
There it is.
Thank you. Do you have a clicker? So this may have been better winging it. The presentation's pretty dense.
Yeah. We just went back to that 20 minutes, didn't we?
There we go.
Yeah.
So we'll skip ahead here. So we were through CASGM and into SGMA, and what you'll find when you look at the SGMA statute is that there's various deadlines at which certain decisions have to be made within these basins that were identified as medium and high priority. The low priority basins and the very low priority basins don't fall under SGMA, and so it's only the medium and the higher priority basins that would be affected. Management of the basin was to be in the form of what they considered to be a groundwater sustainability agency, or a GSA, and only qualified local agencies, which included land use agencies, water supply, water suppliers, or water management agencies have the authority to serve as GSAs. Within the Smith River Basin and within every other basin throughout the state, it's only the county that has the ability to manage the entire basin. Other local agencies could certainly be GSAs, but it would be more limited in terms of what their authority would be specific to their service area. And this is the presentation that I gave to the board, so it's going to be specific to the board, but it's essentially the same for the council. We have been working with the board as we've approached these various deadlines. There was a fair degree of consternation, is how I would put it, Regarding the prioritization of the basin, I think the sense that we all probably have is that the Smith River Basin is a different type of a basin relative to other basins you're going to see throughout the state. And Mayor Inscorer hit the nail on the head when he pointed out the historical data that's specific to the groundwater situation within our basin. We don't have appreciable increase or decline in groundwater elevation. It seems to be fairly static with seasonal fluctuation. So where we're at now, June 30th, again, the way the statute reads, GSAs need to be formed. If no other GSA is formed within the basin, the county under the statute would be the presumptive GSA. Failure to manage any portion of the basin or the basin in its entirety on July 1st would result in the state taking action to intervene for management within the basin. That's never a good thing, and we'll get into exactly what that would entail in this case in a second here. But state intervention, there's going to be various levels of what that state intervention could be. If a portion of the basin is managed by a GSA, but portions of it would be unmanaged, those unmanaged areas would be subject to the state intervention. Obviously, they're considered unmanaged areas. If no GSA is formed within the basin, the entire basin would likely be classified as a probationary basin after hearing by the State Water Resources Control Board. And there is an opportunity for the basin to be classified as an interim basin where there would be development of an interim plan while that unmanaged situation is worked through. State intervention, I think, in particular, what people are concerned with would be annual extraction reports. Groundwater management in California has been a bit of the Wild West for many, many years, decades, perhaps century plus. And for that reason, I think the state's been very keen for a long time to look at increasing that management protocol. And so in this particular case, if state intervention were to occur, what you'd be looking at would essentially be, how much groundwater is actually being extracted. And there's going to be various specific reporting requirements that would be included under that requirement, such as where the groundwater is extracted from, obviously the volume, the purpose of the use, and then each of those extractors would be subject also to a reporting fee. And from the county's perspective, obviously this affects agriculture, but as you can see from the bottom bullet point there, perhaps more significantly, it actually affects just the average single-family residents in the unincorporated county. Anyone that wouldn't receive municipal water service through one of the CSDs or the city would be classified as a de minimis user, and they wouldn't be necessarily required to do the reporting, but they would be required to pay an annual fee. So what do the fees look like? There would be a base filing fee. All extractors would be subject to the base filing fee. That would be $300 per well, and then you add from there. Within an unmanaged area, and again, this would be the situation of a GSA being formed for a particular portion of the basin. Within the unmanaged areas, you'd be looking at an additional $25 per acre foot, or they've incentivized metering, and this gets back to the point I made a second ago about the state being very keen to get into creating higher levels of reporting requirements and data specific to groundwater management. That fee would actually reduce under the incentive to $10 per acre foot if it's metered. Within the probationary basin, which again would be the county declining its authority to be the presumptive GSA and no other GSAs being formed, the fee would be $40 per acre foot. I still can't figure this one out, but within an interim basin, the fee actually would increase while you're working to resolve those issues. Seems kind of counterintuitive, but that's what they've put forward as part of the draft proposal for the fees. And then de minimis users, which again would be your single-family residences in the unincorporated county, would be subject to a $100 annual fee. And in terms of what this looks like for the county, looking at the agricultural community for a 50-acre farm that would be extracting 175 acre-feet per year within a probationary basin, you'd be looking at $7,300 per year annual reporting fee. In an unmanaged portion of the basin, the fee would be a little bit less. For an unmetered situation, about $4,700 annually. For the city, perhaps most interest to the audience and the council this evening, within a probationary basin, $100,000 annually. Unmetered, which presumably the city would have a meter, you'd be looking closer to $25,000 in an unmanaged situation. But again, if nobody stepped forward and did anything under the current fee proposal, $100,000 is what the city would be looking at. So there are other options in terms of GSA formation. Any one of the CSDs or the city would have the authority again to form a single entity GSA. There could be a partnership or a collaborative, perhaps under the authority of a JPA, for the establishment of a multi-agency GSA. So that's kind of the milestone that we're at currently under SGMA. There is going to be a process where the basins, in fact, this was supposed to have been initiated earlier this year, and we were hoping to have a little better sense of where we would ultimately end up. But there is going to be an opportunity for the basins to be reprioritized under the Department of Water Resources update to their Bulletin 118. Through conversations with staff at the Department of Water Resources, there was a hiccup with the hiring of a consultant to give them the technical assistance they needed for the basin reprioritization. That's been pushed out. Unfortunately, it's pushed out until after the June 30th, July 1st cutoff. It would have been a lot more comfortable, I think, for everybody to have a little better sense for how that basin prioritization was going to look going into that GSA deadline. But nonetheless, here we are. I think the positive to take away from all this is that we've developed, I think, some very good working relationships with the Department of Water Resources through all this. I think at this point it's eminently clear in their minds that the Smith River Basin is definitely a different type of basin. We've presented a lot of data to them that they've taken into consideration, so that whenever we get to the point of the reprioritization actually happening, we'll likely be reduced below a medium priority basin, which would take us off the hook for all of the requirements under SGMA, but for legal reasons they can't tell us that definitively today. The issue is that if the basin is unmanaged come July 1st, it's a point in time, and so those reporting fees and the annual reports would be in effect a requirement for this year because of inaction to form a GSA. And so the recommendation from the county at this point would be that the county accept its role as the presumptive GSA for the entire basin. We presented the conversation to the Board of Supervisors last week, as two of you saw. And I think the sense from the board is that this would be the simplest approach to get us from where we are now and to where we want to be. There certainly could be an opportunity for any of the districts or the city to form a GSA, but it could be an unnecessary complication based on where things appear to be headed. So that again is the recommendation. I've got a resolution prepared that'll be going to the Board of Supervisors on May 23rd at the next meeting. And through conversations with Eric, one of the findings that I have included in the draft resolution would essentially be to not oppose if any future GSA were to be put forward by the city or another CSD. And so again, recognizing that we're all kind of, hopefully moving forward in this together, this appears to be the simplest solution to what's kind of a messy deal, not of any of our doing, but it's what comes out of Sacramento. But again, recognizing the authority of the city or the CSDs to do that, including that specifically in the language of the resolution, just to make sure we're all aware of that as an option for the city. And that is it in terms of my presentation, if there's any questions.
All right. Bring it back up to the council. Do you have any questions for Mr. Hooper?
So what does it mean by management of that particular plain or basin, should I say?
That's a good question. That's essentially what's central to SGMA is the management. What SGMA intends to achieve is sustainability within the basin.
Which means what?
Well, it would mean, in the case of, you look at the hydrographs, and you wouldn't have observable, appreciable decline over time. That would be one way that groundwater would be considered to be stable, is you have stable elevations, groundwater elevations. Another would be that you wouldn't have negative impacts for groundwater within the basin. Those could be environmental impacts. One of the comments that was made at the Board of Supervisors meeting was potential seawater intrusion within the basin. And certainly, if seawater were to be found intruding into the aquifer in the Smith River Plain Basin, that would be considered not achieving sustainability. But again, what SGMA is principally intended to accomplish is that whatever management protocol you put in place, you define what sustainability is within your basin. And so to achieve that, it would be presumed that if we were stuck with having to implement SGMA, that whatever that GSA is, or is encompassing of multiple entities, they would have to develop what's called a groundwater sustainability plan, and the plan would have to define how sustainability would be achieved over a specific time frame. I think it's 15 or 20 years. But initially, the first step would be the formation of the GSA, and then you'd have to get the stakeholders together, gather the scientific data to make whatever decisions you're going to make as to how sustainability would be achieved, and then that would be your plan.
Okay.
More questions?
What are the benefits or potential benefits and detriments to the city forming a GSA or joining in with the county on their GSA if they choose to form one?
I think the biggest thing that we're concerned with, if we were to have to do the GSP as the GSA, again, here's that alphabet soup, would be cost.
Okay.
You know, you look at the data that would be needed to put together an informed GSP, and you're likely talking at least, tens of thousands of dollars. These types of studies, when you bring all the different technical experts together, and the time frame that it has to look at, again, projecting over a 20-year period, I think a reasonable cost would be, on the order of $50,000 or $60,000 at a minimum. So I think cost is our biggest concern. If the city were to join with us, we would have more resources at our disposal to jointly prepare that plan, so that could be a good thing. But again, to be clear, what we're hoping to achieve is to show them with the data that we have available that we shouldn't have to do a GSP, like some basin in the Central Valley might, where they've had subsidence, or a coastal community where they've had demonstrated seawater intrusion, things that would be considered counter to having achieved sustainability.
Right. This fee structure that was on the screen in front of me, is that a yearly fee?
It is.
So we're now being charged to pump water out of the ground, even though we're paying to bring in the electricity to run our pumps and bring the water out.
So here's the rationale I think the state would give you for the fees. Because the local agencies have declined to manage their own basin, the state would have to invest resources into conducting that management basically on our behalf. Lucky us. The fees would be how they would recover their costs.
Yeah.
Do we anticipate, if in the forming of the county forming its own GSA, of establishing any annual fees to groundwater users?
I don't think we're at that point yet. Again, I think this is what we see this as a bridge, getting us from, the basin prioritization being inaccurate based on flawed data, to hopefully getting off the hook in terms of the implementation of SGMA. If we find out after they do the basin reprioritization that that's not the case, and for whatever reason we're still a medium priority basin or higher, I think that would be a conversation that we'll have to have when we get to that point. Yeah. But again, to the previous question, there will be cost in whatever that management's going to look like if you have to do the management. And so how that fee would get recovered would be a question that, again, we'd all have to look at together. It'd be not just the city and the county, but the Smith River Community Services District, all the CSDs within the Smith River Basin, because there would be some cost in developing that plan if it's $50,000 or $60,000, whatever the case may be.
But that will be then our responsibility, and it will be our local partners coming together to determine what that actual cost is, not the state saying, here's the fee, you have to pay it.
Correct. Yeah, the fees that are presented under the state intervention are essentially reflective of what they've determined their obligation to be in terms of the delivery of that service. And so under the fee schedule that they proposed, I would imagine it probably is reflective of their management obligation for basins throughout the entire state. If they had to intervene in a basin in Southern California, if they had to intervene in a basin in Northern California, it's going to be the same fee regardless. So it's probably an average of that cost obligation.
Okay.
So whether we put this in effect or not, the $100 for people who are on well water is still going to be $100 either way? Is that what you're saying?
No, if we get out of, if the basin's reprioritized, then essentially the entire discussion regarding fees goes away. The fees would only be applicable if the state had to intervene within a basin that required management.
Okay. Thank you.
Randy, do we have a hopeful timeline on when the reprioritization may happen?
We do. It's looking like probably late summer, early fall. We're actually working with the staff member of the Department of Water Resources who's heading this program up for the entire state. So again, this is one of the good relationships that we've developed over time, and through those conversations, it looks like the target's, August and September, somewhere in there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Good.
Thanks.
Yeah, we can take public comment on the presentation. Come on up and introduce yourself, please.
My name is Felice Pace. I'm the water chair of the North Group of the Redwood chapter of the Sierra Club. I'm also a citizen of the county. I live down in Klamath Glen. And I happen to work on this legislation for the North Coast Streamflow Coalition and on the regulations for SGMA. And I'd like to just comment a little bit on the very negative presentation you just got. First of all, you're not obligated, you're not in the basin, and you're not obligated to do anything in regard to this or to pay anything in regard to this. And the way SGMA is a law passed by our elected representatives, and it's the last state, it's to bring the last state in the union into regulating groundwater. Because as USGS has pointed out in their bulletins, groundwater and surface water are one resource, and they're connected in time, either in a short time frame or a long time frame. I'm afraid you got some information today that is a little bit, what I saw as very negative. I was disappointed in that because SGMA's a really good thing. It's really good to come into the modern era and start regulating groundwater like the rest of the nation is, with the basins that need it the most. And I've been to several of these basins, and every basin thinks they're special. I lived for 15 years down here, but 35 years over on the Scott River. And we all think we're special and that our basin is special. But SGMA is not, and there's webinars available. I'd be happy to supply information on that, because SGMA is not just about groundwater levels. And we have a lot of our basins have annual recharge. But it's also about impacts to the beneficial uses of surface water, like people that have surface water rights, who the pumping may suck the water out of the streams that they have surface water rights on, or something else in SGMA, groundwater dependent ecosystems, where in your river and even in the Smith River Slough, we don't know yet, there may be groundwater charged springs that discharge into there that are very important to the ecosystem. There's also grants available to start to do this, and I would really urge the county and the city to support the county to get everybody involved. We've got tribal government up there, and this could be a really good thing for the agricultural community, for the whole community. And I urge you not to look at it as a negative. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir.
I'll answer any questions, because I actually helped write the law.
I don't know how you could not look at it as a negative if you're starting to tax a resource that people have in the past, in essence, gotten for free or gotten at a low cost by extracting it from the ground.
Well,
I don't see how you could see it
Okay, whether the
any
county,
other way.
whether the county, if it becomes the GSA, chooses to tax, and who it chooses to tax is the county's choice. Only if the state has to come in. The way Sigma was written for local control. You have local control as long as you meet the standards and you meet the deadlines. And the plan, your plan wouldn't have to be in until 2024, or the plan for the Smiths River Plain, which I doubt it's going to get reprioritized out. 2024 to get that plan. And, lots of resources. There's grants available right now that they've put out there for GSAs.
All right.
Okay, out of Prop
Great.
50.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Right, Eileen Cooper. I would also like to say that I would be being prepared, knowing our basin. I don't think that's a bad thing. And if you form this GSA, then you're prepared. You will monitor the uses. You will know what's happening in your basin. And that's a good thing. So I think even if we are a low priority, I don't know if we will be, but I don't think understanding and knowing and monitoring is a bad thing. We are having an uncertain future with climate changing, and we just came out of a drought, but that could be short-lived. And we all saw the Smith River get very low, and why not have an entity that is a little prepared to deal with an uncertain future and growth? And so I think let's be prepared. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Cooper. Do you have any other public comment? Okay, we'll bring back to the council. Is there any final thoughts or any follow-up questions for Mr. Hooper? All right. Thank you, Mr. Hooper, for being here. We certainly appreciate the work of the county and the partnership, and look forward to seeing the resolution next week and weighing in with our support, I hope. All right. Thank you. We're going to move on in our agenda to the consent calendar. We have several items. Special council meeting minutes from the fee workshop of May 1st, regular council meeting minutes from May 1st, warrants claim list for April 22nd through May 5th, 2017, payroll report of April 29th through May 5th, 2017, authorized signature for CBDG documents, and the attached resolution number 2017-16, authorized signer for OES documents, adopting resolution 2017-17, position control update with also an attached resolution 27-18 regarding the position control schedule in the 2016-17 budget, an approval of purchase orders over $3,000, and Florence Keller display at Sutter Coast Hospital. And given the fact that I think we have somebody that might want to speak about the Florence Keller, I would ask that we pull item number 11 and bring the others to the council for consideration.
Move to approve consent.
Second.
3 through 10.
3 through 10. Sorry about that.
Have a-
Removed 11, 3
I have
through
a
10.
motion to approve consent items number 3 through 10. Do you have any public comment on consent items 3 through 10? All right, would you please poll the vote?
Ms. Cooper.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We have public
Go ahead.
comment.
Just, I read through the minutes of item 3. And then, And there was a recommendation this is to do a restudy of our sewer fee, hookup fee structure. And it struck me that would be quite expensive, $20,000, $30,000. And in the conversation, my notes are here, we had the Weldon study, and it's not even a decade old. It's a solid study, and there are very few variables that have changed. And it's not rocket science. And the connections fees, as predicted to what happened, is slightly changed. And the percentages of our interest have changed from 2.4 to 0. So those are two very specific changes that your engineers can very easily adjust what Weldon had. I would trust a simple adjustment like that to the study without going and spending $20,000 or $30,000 for a new study. I would trust the city engineer being able to adjust those simple factors and come out with what the Weldon study would have been had, you know, we had those factors in there. So, Councilwoman Kine had a very good comment that I think got how much unused connections, 1,000. This figure can fluctuate depending upon the size of the connection. I think what you meant was a specific, it's smart, a specific amount, a single use equivalent. How many do we have? So that's very determinable. And so given that fact, I really don't see a whole new study. Let's have our in-house engineers, city and county, look this over, and it's an easy adjustment. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other public comment about consent items 3 through 10? Seeing none, then I'll bring it back. Would you please poll the vote?
Councilmember Greeno?
Yes.
Councilmember Kime?
Yes.
Councilmember Fallman?
Yes.
Pro Tem Short?
Yes.
Mayor Enscore?
Yes. Under our consent calendar, I pulled item number 11, which is a request to post the display Florence Keller paintings at Sutter Coast Hospital. And I see Ms. Sanders here tonight, and I just thought it would be nice and good for the council, since we have had this partnership, if maybe you could come and just give us an update about the Keller paintings and the opportunity to display them. Would you be willing to come and do that? Yeah, please, if you would.
This is not a little impromptu. We have a partnership with the city to get Florence Keller's work out to the public. She's been in a closet for a long time. We started with the Find Your Parks last year, and we had 50 pictures that we reconditioned and then did clays, and we were able to make a public display and have people be able to buy them. It was successful. We've learned a lot. We now have another 67 ready to go, but out of the 119, this is the first time she's going to have the opportunity to go outside of her closet, outside of the community center, the cultural center. The Sutter Hospital has agreed to allow us to display 25 of the original pieces. They have a lock system. However, on number 11, they won't be collecting money for the Jaclays. That will be handled at the 2nd Street Gallery under the California Redwoods Art Association. But we have a really unique system. All the public has to do is call or take the number off of the original, come to the Second Street Gallery, and we will provide them a print or a Giclée or a copy of any one they want. We can make it fit any frame they would like. Let's say grandmother's got an old frame and they would just love to have a 1940s Giclée of Florence's work. We will print to fit the frame, any one they want. So this is another way to generate money for the city. We need money for the cultural center, and Florence is willing to help provide that money. She's excited about it, she told me. So, she and I have been working together here for about a year. So this is an exciting adventure. We'll see how it goes. We have been selling work from the hospital now for the past year, and they love to have the display. We'll hang 25 unique pieces from the first set. And this is a prelim to get the work out there so that by Find Your Parks in September of this year, we'll have had her work hanging since June of the old work. The new work will be available at the Find Your Parks with Giclées of what we've already established, and the new and the old work will also be available. So she's real excited about this, and we're hoping to make some money for the city and for the cultural center. We're looking forward to it. Is there any questions that I've covered it all?
I just think it's great that you're doing that. I wanted to thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, I will just say,
Yes,
and
sir?
I don't usually correct people if I don't have to, but Florence has been outside of the cultural center because Coast Redwood Art Association was very gracious in providing us Florence Keller prints to take with us to Rikuzen Takeda,
That was
Japan.
us, yes.
That is you, and so
The Giclées.
Florence Keller's work is hanging in Mayor Toba's office, in Chairman Ito's office, and in a variety of representatives in Rikuzen
You are
Takeda
correct.
are enjoying Florence Keller's work, and all of that is a direct result of this partnership
Thank you.
and what you guys have done, and I am so very grateful to
I
what you-
apologize if I
Yeah,
forgot
no,
about
I
that.
just,
And I donated it.
no, you did, and we are very, very
Well,
thankful.
thank you.
So, thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, then we will bring back, and I would take a motion then that we approve consent item number 11.
Move to approve item 11.
Second.
Do I have any public comment on item 11? All right, no more public comment. Please pull the vote.
Councilmember Fallman,
Yes.
Councilmember Keim,
Yes.
Councilmember Greeno,
Yes.
Pro Tem Short,
Yes.
Mayor Enscore.
Yes, very good. We have a ceremonial item, and I want to apologize, first of all. I don't have, and I neglected to get the printed copy of this, but I'm going to read the proclamation, and then I want to introduce you to a good friend of mine for this proclamation on Mental Health Month in May 2017. Whereas optimal mental health care is essential to the overall health of the City of Crescent City residents, resulting in productive activities, fulfilling relationships, and the ability to adapt, to change, and cope with adversity. And whereas an estimated 26% of American adults ages 18 and over, about 1 in 4 American adults, are affected by a mental illness, and our local mental health board and other agencies emphasize the importance of promoting mental health and early identification of mental illness. And whereas mental health problems do not discriminate, they affect people regardless of race, creed, age, lifestyle, or economic status, and mental health recovery is possible with proper treatment and support, empowering mental health consumers to lead full and productive lives. And whereas as many as 8 million Americans who have serious mental illnesses do not receive adequate treatment each year, and people who have untreated mental health issues use more general health services than those who receive mental health services when they need them. And whereas nearly 40,000 people in the United States die from suicide annually, or 1 person every 13 minutes, and the City of Crescent City has made a commitment to mental health care in which all residents can receive high quality and consumer-centered services, and take pride in its history and upholding the dignity and civil rights of all its people, including those coping with mental illness. And whereas mental illness should not be shrouded in stigma and discrimination, causing those who are affected not to seek care. The City of Crescent City observes Mental Health Month every May to raise awareness and understanding of mental health. And whereas we commend the Department of Health and Human Services, Mental Health Branch, and all the community partner organizations, whether private, faith-based, or governmental, and individuals for their outstanding work improving the quality of life for mentally disabled individuals in our community. Now therefore be it resolved that the City of Crescent City, that May 2017 is hereby proclaimed as Mental Health Month throughout Del Norte County, and calls upon its citizens, government agencies, public and private institutions, businesses, and schools to recommit our community to increasing awareness and understanding of mental illness and the need for appropriate and accessible services for all people with mental illness, passed and adopted this 15th day of May 2017. I know that our mental health director, Jack Brazil, is here, but I'd like to introduce to you a good friend of mine and the vice chair of the Mental Health Board, Richard Day. Richard, I just want to thank you. Thank you for your service to our community, and I would appreciate it if maybe you would just say a word to the council tonight about why this is so important.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would not be here if it weren't for mental health services. I would have killed myself many years ago. But through the help of people like Jack Brazil, with all the work he does here, and Leanne Cox, he's done so much work with so many people. A lot of people can say, I'm alive because Leanne's been my counselor. Mm-hmm. And, well, let's say, a big thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At this point in our agenda, we will add the Police Week proclamation that we had put onto the agenda at the beginning of the meeting, and I provided copies of this to the council and to our clerk and legal counsel, and I'd like to read this at this time. Whereas the Congress and President of the United States have designated May 15th as Police Officers Memorial Day and the week in which it follows as Police Week, and whereas the International Association of Chiefs of Police have declared law enforcement officer safety and wellness a top priority, and the IACP's Center for Officer Safety and Wellness promotes the importance of individual, agency, family, and community safety and wellness awareness, and whereas the members of law enforcement agencies of the City of Crescent City and Del Norte County play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and freedoms of the citizens of Crescent City and Del Norte County, and whereas it is important that all citizens know and understand the problems, duties, and responsibilities of their police department, and that the members of our police department recognize their duty to serve the people by safeguarding life and property, by protecting them against violence or disorder, and by protecting the innocent against deception and the weak against oppression or intimidation. Whereas the police department of the City of Crescent City has grown to be a modern and scientific law enforcement agency with unceasingly provides a vital public service. Now therefore I, Mayor Blake Enscore, call upon all citizens of Crescent City and upon all patriotic, civil, and educational organizations to observe the week of May 14th through the 20th, 2017 as Police Week, with appropriate ceremonies in which all of our people may join in commemorating police officers past and present, who by their faithful and loyal devotion to their responsibilities have rendered a dedicated service to our communities, and in doing so have established for themselves an enviable and enduring reputation for preserving the rights and the security of all citizens. I further call upon all citizens of Crescent City to observe May 15th, that's today, as Peace Officers Memorial Day, to honor those peace officers who, through their courageous deeds, have lost their lives or become disabled in the performance of duty. All right. Any public comment? I'm sorry that I was not able to make contact with someone from our police department, but I think that this was very important. All right. Very good. We will move on then with our regular agenda. And so if you will take note on your agenda, we are moving to the Housing Authority, but we have no items, so we do not move to there. We are going to have to adjourn to the successor agency, and all members are present, so please let that reflect as we adjourn to the successor agency and call to order. We have one item on our consent calendar, successor agency minutes from December 19th, 2016. Do I have any public comment on the consent calendar item for the successor agency? Seeing none, I'll bring it back. I'll take a motion to approve the minutes from December 19th.
Move to approve the December 19th minutes.
Have a motion, to have a second?
Second.
All right, have a motion and second. Please poll the vote.
Councilmember Keim,
Yes.
Councilmember Fallman,
Yes.
Councilmember Greeno,
Yes.
Pro Tem Short,
Yes.
Mayor Enscore.
Yes, very good. We have one new item, and that is in regards to our recognized obligation payment schedule, or ROPS, and I think our finance director is going to come and address that. ROPS. I will just stay with ROPS. Thank you. I'll try not to.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. There's actually no action to be taken on this item tonight. It's just sort of informational only. The ROPS for next fiscal year was brought to you a few months ago and filed with the state. And the state has changed the calculation for the amount that we are allowed to repay on the CRAF loan next year. We had anticipated being able to pay $71,000, and the state's only going to allow us to pay $57,000. I have contacted our consultant to find out why that has changed, and we'll be hopefully coming back with some more information the next time the successor agency meets. But for now, this is just an update for your information for next year.
Any questions, Ms. Lee? Any public comment? Very good. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
We will adjourn from the successor agency and reconvene as the city council. We're all still here. We'll go on to continuing business, and we have a Brother Jonathan Pebble Beach Geotech project update. Mr. Weir.
All right, thank you, Mayor Enscore, members of the council. So yes, what's before you tonight is to consider authorizing an amendment to the geotechnical contract that we have currently with SHN. The amendment would actually change the later scope of work that was discussed at the February 23rd meeting, and it would actually be a deduction in the contract price. Fortunately enough, tonight we have Gary Simpson. He's the Geosciences Director for SHN. He's in the audience, so Gary will be giving a brief presentation on what his findings have been for the Brother Jonathan look at and kind of the geology in general for that area. This contract comes at a fortuitous time as we're working on several different components, not only for the Brother Jonathan Lookout, which was damaged during the December storms, but also what later became apparent as additional damage, which occurred down by about 8th Street, 8th and Pebble Beach, where the roadway is starting to subside. The city has been working with Cal EMA for potential funding of this. We've submitted the project reports to them. They have done their initial evaluation, and we're still waiting to hear as far as the official funding of the particular project. We've also received contact from the Federal Highways Administration, and they are also looking at the Pebble Beach Drive as a particular project that could be funded for disaster relief. So in regard to the funding source, we've submitted those forms to Caltrans. In working with Gary and his team, the proposed solution, as I'm sure he'll get into a little bit, is soil nailing on Pebble Beach Drive, similar to what the county did a number of years ago further north of the project. The initial estimates are in the $2 million range is what we've submitted to Caltrans to try to fund that project. If Federal Highways does fund that, they would be funding to approximately 88.5% of the total project amount. And then if Cal EMA comes on board as well, then they would fund 75% of the remaining 11 and 11.5%, leaving the city on the responsible for about 3%. So again, we'll come back to the council, give those updates as we have actual confirmation from all those agencies. So tonight you'll receive the presentation from Gary Simpson, get a better understanding of what he found, and then look at this amendment, consider the amendment, which again would reduce the scope of work from doing the subsurface investigation to a more thorough investigation between 6th Street and Preston Island, not just the lookout, and utilizing a UAV, which is an unmanned aerial vehicle, a drone, in other words, to really create some nice maps, not only for this project, but they would create some nice aerial photos for the city that we could use in several other circumstances as well, presentations or other mapping needs that we might have. So there's really a double benefit to this. The other thing that this contract will do or will allow us to further vet is the Pebble Beach PID,
project. That's the project initiations document project that the council approved. I believe it was just at the last meeting with Green Dot Transportation Solutions. So that's a project that we have that's funded through the local transportation commission. And that's to look at all of the pedestrian improvement possibilities and come up with a lot of the base documents that we'll need to apply for a grant. So this study will be the foundation for some of those improvements and really will allow us to fully vet what the best options are. So unless council has any questions for me, I'll invite Gary Simpson up.
Thank you. I might have to drive right here. Is that right? All right. Okay. My name's Gary Simpson. I'm a certified engineering geologist. I run the geoscience group at SHN. We were initially retained by the Public Works Department to evaluate the coastal geologic processes around the Brother Jonathan Lookout. And as we started that process, it became clear that there were a number of other applications that this work can be extrapolated to, some of which Eric alluded to. Brother Jonathan Lookout, I think everybody's familiar with its location just south of Preston Island between 8th and 9th. I would direct your attention to the shape of the lookout there in that image, which is probably in the mid-60s, I believe. The scope of our work at this point included a review of available geologic information and aerial photographs and a variety of historical photographs that the Public Works Department was kind enough to provide, and those were invaluable to understanding the current geologic setting at Brother Jonathan. We have toyed with the idea of doing subsurface investigation to support the conclusions, and one of the things I'm going to discuss tonight is that I think based on the results of the geologic mapping, that's probably not money well spent at this point. Here's an early photograph, pre-1950s. This was titled, there's what's left of Preston Island on the left, and on the right would be an early iteration of the Brother Jonathan Lookout. Notice how long it is there. I'll go back to that first image, shorter there. In its early days, it was quite long, looked kind of like a ski jump. Maybe you just launch right off the end of that thing onto the beach, I'm not sure. But it's very long at this point in its early history. 1965 aerial photograph, again, you can see this very extended, elongate vista point that is, as you know, not present in that form anymore. This is a Google Earth image of what it looks like now. I'll just kind of scroll back before and after. You can see the sort of crumbled remnants of that original paved surface and the original curbing, much of which is washed away at this point. A ground photo of what it looks like now. The end is more or less unstable and just in sort of a semi-permanent state of downhill movement, as is much of the coastline. Okay, go back and do a little history here first. There's Preston Island when it was still an island. This is 1922, and in the background, Lover's Rock is the predecessor of the Brother Jonathan Lookout. So the lookout is in the location of that rock. There's Preston Island halfway removed, and Lover's Rock is still there. You can see the breakwater being built. There's actually a trestle along Preston Island that goes behind Lover's Rock that took the rock, the big quarry rock, the big jetty rock out there. But in this photo, this would be in the mid-1940s because Preston Island was removed in the 1940s. So Lover's Rock is still present. Here's an old photo just of Lover's Rock from the south side. And I will now proceed to provide the Geology 101 lesson. Bedrock in the region here is what we refer to as the Franciscan Complex. It's a Cretaceous and Jurassic Age unit, thus the nomenclature KJF. That refers to the local bedrock unit. That unit is formed from millions of years of crustal subduction that results in a highly variable, heterogeneous bedrock unit that in Geology 101 they would tell you the classic analogy is raisin pudding. So you have rock blocks that form the raisins, and then the intervening areas, the matrix is a shaly, low-strength, sheared matrix that would be the pudding. Some places they refer to that as blue goo. On top of that, through the late Pleistocene, you had a marine terrace that was formed there. That's the QT, that blanket there that's formed on the top behind the rock. So basically what I think has transpired here is that what I wrote blocky KJF, now gone, that piece was removed. And the coast now consists basically of that exposure of the marine terrace and the shaly Franciscan material, low strength, shaly Franciscan. You can see another block, another raisin in the foreground. Sorry, here's another old historic vantage point with the raisins and the intervening pudding. It's important to note the raisins are, you know, the sea stacks offshore. Those are the remnants of those raisins where all the pudding's been washed away. The raisins form headlands. We put lighthouses on those. They tend to form resistant blocks along the coastline. The intervening pudding, if you will, is low strength. It's subject to erosion, and those areas form sort of recessional landforms, coves, inlets, things like that. So pretty much the entire sort of coast along Pebble Beach Drive is controlled by this process. Here's the current headland, just below the Brother Jonathan Lookout. You can see no more Lover's Rock, it's gone. There's the shaly matrix material there with some rock blocks, some kind of smaller blocks, but you can see the low strength nature of that material. There's the terrace deposit up above, which consists of sort of a bouldery lag deposit, and then some sandy material up above. The key exposure occurs on the north flank of the headland there. Here you can see where the shaly matrix material in the lower right there transitions to what I refer to there as, again, as a blocky unit within the KJF. It's highly variable, and you can literally move within a few feet from resistant material to the pudding. So there we are transitioning across that very sharp contact. Look at the lag deposit at the base of the terrace material, and you can see in the foreground that it's basically sat down, if you will, or failed, and it's subsided a couple feet. I'll just say 1 to 2 feet. Keep an eye on the big boulder there on the right-hand side of that failure plane. If you walk up on top of the headland and look down and find that rock and then turn around and look south, that's what you see, and that is what I would interpret as a linear scarp associated with a failure of the headland, and notice it's 1 to 2 feet high. So I think that this is a reflection of something responding to the underlying bedrock material and the difference in the nature of the material. Pudding on the right, raisin on the left. From the air, that would be a more or less representation. You can see the blocky material on the north side of the headland, and it's even exposed out on the beach. I believe the headland is basically sat down right there, 1 to 2 feet. And basically, I think that the headland's been slowly going through a process where that weak material is being washed away, and it will continue to be washed away. But if you note back here, everything to the right then would be subject to washing away. There's the existing guardrail and the curbing back there on the left, so I would suspect that where it's located now, it's probably going to be safe for quite some time. In other words, it's probably not worth spending money to buttress this headland to protect that lookout at this time. I would also suggest it's probably not worth drilling on that parking area, because we're just going to drill down and it's highly likely we're going to hit that blocky material. So in this case, I think the exposure is adequate to sort of tell the story without going to the extra expense, several $1,000s of getting a drill rig and answering that question. So I'm pretty comfortable with the conclusion here. As Eric mentioned, this mapping can and should be applied along Pebble Beach Drive. Everywhere that those rock blocks are located, you're going to have a headland, but where that low-strength material, that's where the coastline's going to eat back, and that's where we are starting to see some areas around the perimeter along the edges of Pebble Beach Drive where we're seeing some subsidence. So that process will certainly continue over time, and that's what we've devised at this point is sort of just a conceptual approach to mitigating that. In this case, mitigating the process at the base would be some type of armoring or something. Obviously, we're dealing within the parameters of the Coastal Commission here, so whatever is acceptable in terms of an aesthetic armoring approach. There's plenty of big rocks on the beach right now, so maybe some strategically located blocks would be appropriate, and then possibly some reinforcement involving soil nails or something similar to that, which was used further north along the bluff. So in the granular material of the terrace deposit, there you have to provide some sort of reinforcement, if you will. So that's the approach we've taken so far. So, any questions?
Do you have any questions? No, guess not. Thank you so much, sir. Appreciate it. What? Well, Mr. Weir, why don't you talk to us a little bit about just the switching from one to the other and how we're using the same resources we've already allocated to accomplish the next step.
Sure. So on at the meeting of the 23rd of February, the City Council authorized a contract with SHN for the total amount of $18,000. $10,500 was to go towards this evaluation, this study report that was just been presented to you. The remaining $7,500 was in case the initial investigation really warranted bringing in a subsurface investigation, which was the drilling rig that Mr. Simpson just talked about. So that's where we went ahead and allocated the full amount. $7,500 of that was for that subsurface. So with his conclusion and his level of comfort that he's expressed to staff and now the council, it's our recommendation as well as his that instead of utilizing that money for a subsurface investigation to confirm what he feels pretty confident that he's going to find, we would actually switch that money to do the evaluation from Brother Jonathan Point actually south down to 6th, and it would also pick up the northern section from this point to Preston Island, so about another 300 feet to the north as well. That total is about $3,500, and then there would be an additional $3,000 of that remaining funds that could be used for the UAV, the unmanned aerial vehicle, and that would provide mapping such as this, although much higher quality, so we can actually do that investigation, and he can use that mapping then to complete the report.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Weir? Very good. Any public comment on this geotechnical work? Yes.
Hi, Eileen Cooper. I think it would be sensible to, before you go forward with any armoring plans whatsoever, that we as the city, and I advise the county, sit down with coastal staff, because what is acceptable and what isn't, you don't want to start investing money and time into plans that will have, coastal conflicts. So, this is a natural process, and armoring is frowned upon. What happens is that development is put too close to the edge, and then armoring is requested, and I've seen numerous times where it's turned down, because what happens is your beach, you lose your walking beaches areas, because then you have these areas that are armored and that actually create more erosion on other sides of it. So I guess the philosophy is let the natural process move things back in an even way. So I highly advise not pushing against, but working with the Coastal Commission on this.
All right, thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council. Any final questions or comments? Not, then I'm looking for action to approve this amendment to the professional service contract.
Mr. Mayor, I'd move that we amend the professional service contract with SHN Consulting Engineers and Geologists for additional geotechnical services for Pebble Beach Drive from Preston Island to 6th Street in an amount of $6,500, which would include field reconnaissance and, UAV.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All right, would you please poll the vote?
Councilmember Keim?
Yes.
Councilmember Fallman?
Yes.
Councilmember Greeno?
Yes.
Pro Tem Short?
Yes.
Mayor Inscore?
Yes, very good. We will continue on with our agenda. We have item 16, which is a payment agreement with West Park Properties and the attached resolution. Who's, Mr. Weir, are you presenting this? Ms. Lever, who's you tag team this?
Yes, we'll take this on jointly, as we have over the course of many years in dealing with this situation that's before us tonight. So Linda is here, and she can answer any financial questions that you might have. I'll go ahead and I'll give the synopsis of the report, and then if you have any technical questions, you can direct them to me in regard to the actual sewer connection itself and the possible impacts to the treatment plant. So West Park Properties is a 39-space mobile home park owned by Rita West. It's located at 2051 North Crest Drive. In 2000, over the past several years, it has become an issue with the particular park about their on-site septic system. Their on-site septic system is failing. In regard to this, in 2008, or as part of this, 2008, Delaware County received a CDBG grant, a Community Development Block Grant, and built a gravity sewer main, extended the sewer and the CSA down to the low point in that whole region, which happens to be in front of the park. So they could serve not only this park, but also multiple parks in the same vicinity, as well as anybody else that would need to hook up to the gravity sewer. However, to date, nobody has hooked up to the sewer lift station. So what this does is it puts the county out of compliance with the grant and could put the county in jeopardy of losing future CDBG funds. So that's the background on the current infrastructure. Right now, sewer lines have been extended to the front of the park, and really it's just up to the park now to connect to the sewer system. However, being a 39-space mobile home park, it's not just one single-family equivalent. We look at mobile home parks as 0.6 of a single-family equivalent. So what that comes down to is it comes out to a connection fee of $226,558.80. So it's not just a simple matter of connecting. The city has a standard financing agreement for sewer connections. Standard financing agreement is a 5-year plan with 10% down, and it's 1% plus the city's LAIF, which ranges between 0.5% and 0.75% typically. And then it also allows for an extension up to 10 years with the city manager's approval. But as you can tell, with the connection fee of $226,000, this isn't your standard type of connection. So the city's been working with the West, working with the county for a number of years, trying to find solutions. They've worked with engineers to try to find on-site solutions. They've worked with us over different financing, possibilities, and which is culminating tonight with the agreement that's before the council. This is an important connection for the community. As we talked about with CDBG funding, currently the county funds important community services such as the Senior Center and CASA. If they're not able to resolve this issue with hooking valuable connections up to this line, some of that funding could be in jeopardy. So that's where it's important to the community. From a city standpoint, it's important to realize that this is a financing agreement. We're not waiving any connection fees. We're not saying that they don't have to pay the connection fees. It's simply just a financing agreement. So what the West have proposed is the West are requesting a payment agreement with 2% down, 0% interest, and a 30-year term. The city has obviously interest in doing this as well, because we would be receiving the total amount of this connection fee over time. And then not only that, but we would be receiving the monthly fees as soon as they're connected. So the monthly fees would again be calculated based on a single family equivalency, the same type of calculation, number of spaces hooked up times 0.6. This would account for approximately $17,000 every year. I know the staff report says 20, but it's actually closer to 17. So this is a financial benefit to the city. Treatment plant has sufficient capacity to accept this. This is residential sewage strength, and there's a lift station right in front of it. So from the city's standpoint, this would be a good thing, increasing our annual revenue, and not only that, but get connections to this lift station that's now set unused for a number of years.
All right. Ms. Lever, is there anything that you wanted to add from a financial standpoint?
I would just point out that in terms of the financing agreement, this would be filed with the county as a lien against the property, and we have received mortgage documents and an appraisal that show that in the event of a default, because obviously there's always some amount of risk, the value of the property should be sufficient to cover both the mortgage and the lien.
All right, very good, thank you. Anything else, Mr. Weir? Anybody have any questions for Mr. Weir or Ms. Lever?
I'd just like to point out that we do have Mr. West here, who is the son of Rita West. He's in the audience, so if you have any questions of him, you can ask as well.
We'll open up public comment, and I would give opportunity, Mr. Knutson, if you'd like to come and say anything, you're welcome to.
Just thank you.
Okay, that's fine too. All right. We will open up public comment. Any other public comment regarding the West Park situation? Mr.
Good
Serena.
evening, council. I'm primarily here to lend support to this decision, but also to thank the city staff that worked with the county staff. I inherited this several years ago. It's been an issue. I want to thank the property owner too for their cooperation. This is a very big community project in all. Yes, we inherited it, HCD threw this on our shoulders. In order for us to go forward with our next application for CDBG, this is key. So I thank you. I thank you for your decision as you go forward, but also city staff and their close relationship with the county staff as they went through this. And then in addition, we had kind of hit a lull in getting any success on this a couple of years ago, and I was able to engage at that time Councilman Inscore, Mayor Inscore, to try to get a little traction, and it's put us in the position we are today. So I want to thank the mayor also.
Thank you, Mr. Serena. Any other public comment? All right, then I will bring it back to the council. We have a resolution in front of us. What is the will of the council?
I move we approve Resolution 2017-15, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Crescent City approving a payment plan agreement for utility fees.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Would you please poll the vote?
Councilmember Keim?
Yes.
Councilmember Greeno?
Yes.
Councilmember Fallman?
Yes.
Pro Tem Short?
Yes.
Mayor Inscore?
Yes. Very good. Mr. Knutson, thank you so much for being a good partner, working with the county, with the city. We very much look forward to being able to get the park hooked up, and I know that will be an improvement for your family. And just on behalf of the city and the county, we're very thankful for you as a local business person investing in our community.
Thank you guys very much, everyone who's worked with me. I'm very appreciative.
Thank you. Very good. All right. Let me get back here. And we'll We're at number 17, temporary employees through STEP Inc. in Delmark County. There you are. Hello,
Fast.
Sunny.
Good evening, Mayor and Score, members of the council. So before you, I have an agreement that's through the Del Norte Workforce Center. They received a grant, the National Dislocated Workers Grant, which is receiving funding for assisting with storm damage and repair in Del Norte County. And so they've reached out to different employers in the community with public employers as well as private nonprofits. And what this would allow us to do would be they would be the employer of record, and they would, none of the costs would come from the city. They would all come from this grant. So the funds would be used to pay wages for temporary laborers placed at public or nonprofit entities. Their administration office at Del Norte Workforce Center would be the employer of record and responsible for the wage, the taxes, and the workman's compensation. They will be able to do any labor-based work in parks, beautification projects, beaches, painting, things like that in the community to help anything repaired from time, weather, damage from all the storms that we've had. They would be full-time employees, 520 hours, which would start sometime in the month of June and last as long as the 520 hours would allow. We can get as many, currently I don't know how many they've actually placed today, but we could have 1 to about 20. It depends on us how many we would like to take on. They were doing a mass recruiting at the end of the month, and they reached out to the city of Crescent City. Our department heads, Mr. Weir and his management supervisors are on board with this. We just need to get a final yes to do that.
All right. Do we have any questions for Sunny?
What could be hard to understand about grant-funded work for our city?
The idea of getting people to work.
That's
and we
pretty
don't have to pay
awesome.
them that.
Yes,
I think
it
that's
is.
a great idea.
We're very excited.
All righty. Do we have any public comment regarding the STEP program and the temporary employees that could be hired through this? Seeing none, we'll close public comment then, and we'll bring it back to the council. We need to approve this agreement.
I move to approve an agreement with STEP Inc., Del Norte County, to provide temporary employment to our Public Works Department.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Please pull the vote.
Councilmember Fallman,
Yes.
Councilmember Keim,
Yes.
Councilmember Greeno,
Yes.
Pro Tem Short,
Yes.
Mayor and Score.
Yes, very good. Thank you. We have another item on new business, and that is elevated tank seismic retrofit project. Mr. Weir.
All right, thank you, Mayor Inscore, members of the council. So another project that is finally coming to fruition is the elevated tank seismic retrofit. And it's really, at this point, as was been presented to the council in the past, it's not really a seismic retrofit to the elevated tank anymore. It is building a new pressure relief valve system and a new building on the elevated tank site. And it will include the eventual demolition or dismantling of the elevated tank itself. So this project, little brief background on the elevated tank. It was built in 1958. It's located at Wonder Stump and 101 approximately. It's a sound tank, 50,000 gallons, basically controls all of the pressure for the water system. The water's pumped up to the elevated tank, reaches a height of approximately 210 feet above sea level, and that's what sets the pressure in here in town of about 65 to 70 PSI that comes out of your taps. Critical element, obviously, to the water system. We've evaluated it with Pittsburgh Tank and Tower Company. They determined that indeed the tank is a very valuable asset built from the Chicago Bridge and Iron Company. But however, it wasn't built to today's seismic codes, and in fact was very vulnerable to seismic activity and would indeed collapse in a large event, rendering the city very vulnerable to any sorts of impacts, be it fire or just water, public health, all the above. The city went out and obtained a Proposition 84 grant to do a seismic retrofit. Part of that grant in the analysis on how we do the rehab of the tank, which was strengthening the lateral bracing, strengthening the foundation, looking at the tank, improving the tank itself, also led to the fact that we had to take this tank out of service to do all of that. Well, how do you take out one of your most critical components of your water system? So that's where we're looking at different alternatives, such as, do we bring in large tanker trucks and have to try to pressurize those? They were very expensive options, very cumbersome, really hard to deal with from a logistics side of things. That's where we came up with the PRV system. And the PRV system utilizes a clay valve is the manufacturer's name, or a real common name for the type of valve. And it's a diaphragm type of valve that looks at the pressure on the incoming side and the outgoing side and adjust the diaphragm valve accordingly so you can maintain a pressure on your downstream side. Essentially doing what the elevated tank is doing it, although you control it with a valve. City crews installed a small PRV system out off a Wonder Stump. We turned the elevated tank off. We operated the system on the PRV, and it worked beautifully. It worked so great, in fact, that we took a step back and said, boy, why can't we just operate off this system and not have this elevated tank that is, to a certain extent, a risk from a vulnerability standpoint and also really hard to maintain. So that's where we approached the council. Council gave us direction to go back to the drawing board, so to speak, and approach the grant funding agency with a rescope to the project, which is to not do a seismic retrofit of the elevated tank, but to actually redesign it and put in a PRV system with a building which will allow some storage. It'll allow for better sampling of the water system at that location. And it was also projected to be a substantial cost savings at that time. Part of that was the fact that we also need a new SCADA system. SCADA system is in our water system capital improvement plan, and it's also a vital component to this project. So any cost savings that we could obtain from this redesign of this project could also be applied to the SCADA, and now that's incorporated in the scope of work. We designed the project, put the project out to bid. The city received 2 bids. We received a bid from Walland Construction, and we received a bid from McLennan Excavation. Walland's Construction's bid was for $1,021,431. Our engineer's estimate on this was approximately $400,000, by the way. So needless to say, that one was quite a shock, and it was the first bid that we opened. The second bid that we opened was from McLennan. That was in the amount of $469,000, so although slightly over our engineer's estimate, it was a lot closer, and at this point we would like to proceed with that. Just in questioning the contractors in regard to the prices and why they were over the engineer's estimate, especially Walland Construction's bid, really it's just a sign of the economy. It's a sign of construction is now going up again. He's a Humboldt County contractor, and so being in the middle of summertime, especially with some of the new legislation that has passed, there's a lot of construction going on, especially in Humboldt County. And so he simply stated that he couldn't get the subcontractors to build this project, and so he had to bid it high. Again, staff feels though McLennan's bid is in the ballpark. We don't feel we can go out to bid again and receive any more competitive type of bids. So at this point, we would like to ask the council to approve his bid. This is only phase 1 of the project, however. It's the vast majority of it. The second phase of this is to install the new SCADA, so it will be led under a separate contract, because it's not simply building the SCADA system for just this facility. It's actually putting a whole new SCADA system in for the water system. The existing SCADA is a 1999 system. We have some money that we have set aside in this year's budget for the master plan, and then which will roll over, and some additional funds in next year's budget to help fund that. That we could use any remaining funds that we have allocated for this project as well. So that will come back to the council in a separate contract. And then the third phase would be to dismantle the tank. So we want to build the building, we want to put the system in place, we're going to run it manual for a little bit again, making sure it works. We'll put the SCADA system on, we'll run it under controls for a period of time, and then we'll take the third step, which would be to dismantle the tank. As you can tell from the funding sources, we have about $515,000 remaining in the grant for construction. This contract is going to be for $469,000. Doesn't leave us a whole lot of funds to complete phase 2, phase 3. Again, we do have some money for the SCADA system, but we'll take each of those steps one step at a time. We still feel that this will give the city the best benefit for this particular dollar amount for this particular site to switch to this PRV system. It allows us storage. It allows a much more maintainable type of system rather than going back to the original plan, which was the retrofit of the elevated tank.
All right. Have any questions for Mr. Weir? I will just echo some of our conversations, Mr. Weir, and that is that I think we need to keep moving forward on a very expeditious manner for Phase 2 and Phase 3. Number one, because obviously we do need to update the SCADA system. But maybe even more importantly with Phase 3 is the reason initially for this grant and to address this was the seismic retrofitting of that tank. If we do not continue moving forward looking for funding to get all three of these done, and that tank is sitting there still at risk with a seismic event, and we have just spent $500,000 with new construction right underneath it, we can't afford to do that. So I would just encourage you to keep moving forward on this process, keep the council informed so that we can do everything we can to make sure that we get SCADA in place, make sure that the PRV system works, and we can get that tank down before the reason that we even started this discussion comes to pass.
Couldn't agree more, and yes, we'll work as fast as we can to get those other components completed. In fact, probably by July of this year, you will see an RFP go out for the design and implementation of the SCADA system master plan for the water side of things. So that will be the SCADA system. From my understanding, it takes 4 to 6 months to complete the design of that. So we're looking at sometime there in about, again, another 4 to 6 to actually implement it. So it'll probably be until July of the following year to actually have the SCADA system in place. And then we'll want to run it for a number of months, as we said, and then we'll dismantle the tank in time for the grant to pick up the cost for that, which is December of 2018. So we are on a fast pace and duly noted.
Great. Thank you very much. Do we have any public comment regarding the elevated tank seismic retrofit project? Wow, that was kind of, look, really easy to say on my iPad. None? Close public comment, bring it back to the council for action.
I move we approve the final plans and specifications for the elevated water tank seismic retrofit project.
See, it's not that easy.
He couldn't do it either.
No easier than ROPS.
Do we need to do these separately, council, or can we approve both these together?
You can do them together. If you
All right. Did you do the second one?
And I move that we approve an agreement with McLennan Excavation to complete the elevated water tank seismic retrofit project in the amount of $469,000.
We have a motion and a second. Please pull the vote.
Did
We have a second?
I'll second. I'll second.
Okay. I have 2 seconds.
Now we have a second.
All right. Please pull the vote.
Councilmember Greeno,
Yes.
Councilmember Keim,
Yes.
Councilmember Fallman,
Yes.
Pro Tem Short,
Yes.
Mayor Enscore.
Yes. Very good. We have come to the end of our regularly scheduled, I'm going to have trouble tonight, items under our new business, and we will move on to legislative matters. We have had multiple discussions at the council level regarding SB 54. We have a letter or email from Sheriff Apperson, and we also have a draft suggested letter at the request of the council to consider tonight. You also have a letter from the California Sheriff's Association. So I will open up any discussion from the council first before we open up for public comment. I will just note that the Senate did pass SB 54, and it's now on the desk in the Assembly. So they believe they passed it on April 3rd of this year. Council?
I think Greeno first. Yeah.
Did you want to go?
No,
You can go first.
ahead.
Oh,
Go
It's your
ahead.
turn.
I've read the bill. I've looked at the what it would change and what it would do. And it's not about being anti-immigrant. It's not about being against a certain group. It's about protecting the public. It's about making sure that offenders, people who come here and commit crimes, are not allowed to be released into the public to commit more crimes and harm more people. That's what it's about. And if this bill goes through, it will take resources away from our police officers. It will put a barrier between our local police and our federal law enforcement, and it will not allow them to do their job as effectively. So I urge the council to support this letter of opposition to the Senate and to send a draft as well to the Assembly.
I don't disagree with Councilman Greeno on the detriments that this bill may have. Law enforcement's been very clear that this bill is going to make it harder to do their job. But this bill's also going to have detriments on this council's standing in the community with at least the handful of people that are here tonight and probably all their friends and then their friends' friends. I know it's a very divisive issue, and I don't think we should start wading in on issues like this where there's really, politically speaking, a no-win solution for the council. People, regardless of what stance we take, are going to be upset at us. We should find issues that everybody can agree on. If I was in the Senate, I wouldn't vote for SB 54, but I'd go back to Senator De Leon and try and find a solution that we could all agree on.
Okay. Member Kime?
You know, I don't want anyone to not feel safe in this community. I want people to be able to have a voice that they can feel free to come forward and not be in fear of being deported. That's not the issue here, but I agree with Councilman Greeno. This is a law enforcement issue, and when our law enforcement is telling us that they oppose this, then I have to defer to those that are here to protect us, protect and serve us. And that's how I feel.
Pro Tem Short.
I just feel that this is a very poorly written piece of legislation. Again, it's not about the political one side or the other. For example, in the text of the law, it puts in a provision to where basically you're eliminating the need for someone who is a crime victim to be afraid to report it for fear of being deported. That is absolutely something that needs to happen. It's ridiculous that someone would be scared to report a crime in our country. But at the same time, we have a provision in here that that bars law enforcement agencies from reporting to immigration authorities a person who is serving a term for the conviction of a misdemeanor or felony offense and has a current or prior conviction for a violent felony listed in the penal code. If you read that section, it makes it look like the bill is authorizing law enforcement agencies to do that. But that's not the way it is. At the beginning of the section, it says notwithstanding the limitation in subdivision A. So you have to back all the way up to subdivision A, and it will tell you that you're not allowed to provide any information, basically. So that's why I oppose this bill. there is some things in this bill that I agree need to happen. But there are other things in this bill that are completely preposterous to me. So I hope our legislature does not pass this, but in response, drafts a much better written piece of legislation.
All right. And I think that, again, the issue at this point in time, as far as weighing in with our state representatives, is at the assembly level, not that making the Senate aware of any decision that this council might make, but the assembly obviously has an opportunity to amend this piece of legislation as they consider it. All right, I'm guessing we have some public comment tonight, so I'll reserve opportunity for the council to weigh in again, but if we have public comment on this item, I would certainly invite you to come and speak at this time.
Hi. Again, I'm Patricia Black and I am a city resident. I'm not here to defend everything in SB 54. I've read it also, and I've come to different conclusions, but I'm not a lawyer either. There's a lawyer here that you could ask to analyze it for you. But what I'm really here to talk about is whether it's appropriate for the city to take a stand by sending a letter on how many hundreds of different bills do you not take stands on. And when you take a stand on this bill, the message that you're sending to the immigrant community is the opposite of who you guys all are and what you stand for. I read your resolution number 2 for the year. It's a beautiful resolution, and you all signed it, so I know that you guys are all behind this. And what it says is, we uphold the natural and legal rights of individuals to live a life unmolested by harassment, discrimination, persecution, or assault, whether perpetrated by individuals, groups, businesses, or government. Because I speak Spanish, I know something about what the community is going through. I know how scared they are of ICE coming in, and I know that they are scared to report crimes. They are scared to speak up if they're witnesses. They are scared to drive down the street. They're scared to drop off their kids to school. So what you would be saying if you send this letter of opposition would be saying, we're happy that we're here safe, but we don't care that you guys don't feel safe. And I know you guys don't feel that way. So what I would ask of you is just set this aside, put it with your response to all the other bills that you haven't thought it was that important to respond to. I'm sure the California Sheriff's Association has lobbyists in Sacramento that are working with our legislators to work on the bill so that it becomes something that will work for them. And I would hope that instead of sending this letter, you guys would do a resolution that says that well, you've already done it. It says we care about everyone in our community. We want them all to feel safe, and we want them to be protected from harassment, whether it be by ICE or by anybody else. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you,
Black.
Patricia.
All right, we have a public comment.
My name is Judith Burke, and I live in the county. My husband has been in law enforcement for many years, both the city police and the sheriff's department or sheriff's office. One thing I've learned in conversations with my husband is that when people are afraid to talk with law enforcement, crime goes up. Criminals tend to pick on immigrants because they recognize that immigrants may be afraid to report crimes or give information to law enforcement because they fear deportation if they call attention to themselves.
Therefore, to reduce crime in our community, it would make sense for the City Council to write a letter in support of SB 54, so law enforcement can use its limited resources to fight crime and gather useful information. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Felice Pace. I live in Klamath Glen, and thanks for the opportunity to talk, even though I don't reside in the city limits. The people in our county that this bill would impact directly are mainly the agricultural workers and their families. I know that you're proud. I know the county supervisors. I know we're all proud of our agricultural industry. And when they ask you to support something, you usually support it, and the county usually supports it. Well, if they could feel safe being here today, the workers would ask you to support this bill. And if your concern is public safety, I think it's very clear that in the interest of this community's public safety is to have people feel like they can contact the police when there's a problem. I think when you're looking at things that have pluses and minuses, you got to look to public safety, and your responsibility is public safety in this city, and that would be enhanced by this bill passing. Thank you.
Thank you. Have any other public comment? Yes, sir.
Jerry Sapalhan again, Director for True North. I think that it is a slippery slope for the city to begin to debate this at this point without further discussion, because as I said earlier, this is a statewide law that you are weighing in on, that you want to comment on, and what I'm more concerned about are the citizens and the people and the workers here in Del Norte County, and I would urge you to take some time to try to figure out a better healing approach to making sure that what you're trying to do here and what you're trying to speak to is not so much what's happening in Sacramento, but what is happening here in Crescent City and in Del Norte. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Hello everyone, my name is Manuel Vidal Saavedra Herrera. I'm here as somebody that lives in Del Norte County and as a first U.S. citizen. After election, I get consecutive questions from my community. Am I safe? Do these people sitting in your chairs want me in their buildings? Obviously, they don't feel safe because most of the people that would be affected by this letter are not here. And this bill is not about protecting criminals, it's about protecting neighborhoods and our community to feel safe calling local law enforcement. It's not about left versus right, it's about families being kept together. It's disgusting knowing that my community feels unsafe. And it's even more foul just knowing that there's a letter being sent or talked about being sent so quickly on what appears to me there hasn't been the dialogue with our undocumented community. I speak for myself, but I have had those conversations, and they don't want you to send this bill or a letter like this rejecting this bill. And I urge you to have more conversations with our undocumented community. I'm sure that they're open for conversations. If you're willing to go and ask yourselves, who are the people closest to the pain? What would I do if I was deported? If a loved one came to me and said, I don't feel safe in my community? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Manuel.
Do you have any more public comment?
Good afternoon, City Council. My name is Thomas Joseph. I live on Gaynard Street, and I kind of just like to stick to the facts of things. We know that the Republican states that are in support of the election of Trump are passing measures on the other side of this, like the Texas Senate Bill 4. You have the Democratic states, which are the really hard blue ones that we live in, such as California, trying to pass SB 54, which is what we're talking about today. And so we see the struggle between the pro-Trump and the anti-Trump. It's a national agenda, it's a national strategy, but what I urge the City Council to do is to stick to City Council politics and realize that digging into the national agenda to stand on one side or the other side, it is a crucial decision to make for a smaller community that we live in. You have the Republican Party urging the Sheriff's Association and the red parts of the state to deny SB 54, but really we know, living in Crescent City in a smaller urban setting, that our representatives realize how much votes they receive from us, and most of the time it's not for them. How much weight are they really going to listen to the letter? And how much detriment is it going to really cause the city of Crescent City? Now that he'll take the letter that you guys write, and he'll read it, and he'll say, I assumed I was going to get a letter from Crescent City. But the result of the letter will be dramatic for the community members that live here in your city and within your city walls and within the rest of the county. I understand the direction of the Sheriff's Office and the Republican National Party and State Party, but let's not cause division amongst our small town for national agendas. Let's do what's best for our community here and see how we can build and live together in a stronger community and recognize each other and honor each other with full dignity and respect. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any more public comment? Okay. Bring it back to the council. I'll give you guys a final opportunity to weigh in, and then I have a couple of thoughts that I'd like to share. Anybody else have anything else that they'd like to say, council-wise?
I'd like to speak for the people who were victims of crime, people who can't speak anymore, people who their constitutional rights were violated by a criminal who decided to take their life, who decided to come here and decided not to live by the rule of law and harmed a person. And it happens. It does happen. Those people should not be on our streets. The people who commit these terrible crimes, they need to be deported. And I'm talking about people who have commit crimes, who come here illegally, don't respect the rule of law, commit crimes, and they're only in custody because they've committed a crime, not because they were asked in a traffic stop, are you here illegally? That doesn't happen. That should not happen. Only after a person commits a crime should any of that information come out. The national narrative that is so pervasive in our society is absolutely ridiculous. And the reason that I oppose this isn't because of an agenda. It's not because of our president and his stand. It is because I believe that we should not allow criminals to be on our streets and allow people to be released from custody who have committed crimes to reoffend and harm more people in our community. So that's the reason why I oppose this bill.
Anybody else? Fallman?
No, Mr. Mayor, nothing else to add. I think our conversation, it speaks for itself.
Councilwoman Kime? Pro Tem?
Except that thank you all for sharing your opinions and your thoughts.
Another, another aspect of this bill that drove me to oppose it in response to Ms. Black's comments is the fact that they're forcing the law enforcement community to not communicate with immigration authorities without a big burden of reporting attached to it. My fear if that happens is that immigration will come into the communities and be banging on the doors of our agricultural workers. And that's not happening now, and I don't want that to happen if this bill passes. Whether Crescent City should weigh in on it, it's a good question. Should we sit silent when we see something wrong? I kind of don't think so. Do I want that to reflect that I am not in favor of our immigrant community? Certainly not. I guess that's it, Mr. Mayor.
All right. I will simply weigh in with a couple of thoughts. Having looked at SB 54, as Pro Tem Short noted, there are certain provisions in SB 54 that I don't think are appropriate. I do think it's poorly written legislation, and all we can hope for, I guess, from that standpoint with our state assembly is that maybe some of those things are addressed and cleaned up in legislation that happens all the time. I have said from the outset that I believe this is a law enforcement issue. I believe that the California Sheriff's Association, California Chief Association are well within their rights as law enforcement individuals to weigh in on the components of this legislation that they think adversely affect their ability to carry out their duties as law enforcement officers. I'm not a law enforcement officer. Law enforcement, our top cops here in our community, both our chief of police and our sheriff, have indicated that they believe SB 54, as it was written, puts undue hindrances on them of being able to protect all of our citizens. I've not heard them say it once that they feel like somehow it's going to either stop them from targeting the immigrant community or any of that. I haven't heard that from either one, from Sheriff Apperson or Chief Menzel. I have always believed this is a law enforcement issue. Unfortunately, politicians like us get involved in these things, and we oftentimes write these types of laws, legislation, or resolutions. Ms. Black made reference to the resolution of inclusion, which was something that I proposed and that we did. I firmly believe in those principles that we addressed. I don't think that resolution indicated that we somehow support people who live outside the law. It was never the intention of that. I don't think anybody would ask us to say we want to support people living outside the law. But that is part of the message that this sends when we oppose something. It can send that message. I don't think it has to. But my opinion has not changed. I personally believe that if there is opposition to this bill, it needs to come from those who are directly affected by this bill. It will not be me. It will be my chief of police. And he's certainly within his rights to voice his opposition. He can do so through the California Police Chiefs Association, as can our sheriff. That's my stance. There are things in SB 54 I don't support. I think it's poorly written, and I think it's a travesty that somehow the fact that Sacramento, and this is another aspect of this, Sacramento what goes on in Sacramento does affect us. And when they write bad legislation that we have to live with, then what we end up with is divisiveness that we don't need here. We don't need, I'm tired of the days where what happens in Sacramento somehow is pushed upon us and we have to do this, and it creates this level of division that I don't think needs to be in our community. So my personal stance has not changed from day one when we began this discussion on SB 54. I'm personally not in favor of a letter opposing the bill. I believe that that is the responsibility of our local law enforcement and their advocacy to do so, because it is them that have voiced the concerns and address the specific issues involved in the implementation of SB 54, of which I can't possibly fully comprehend. I'm not a law enforcement individual. So that's, again, that is what I have said since day one, and I have not seen or heard, though I respect all of your opinions, and I certainly appreciate our public coming and sharing tonight, and I respect all of you, but that has been my stance from the beginning, and it has not changed. So if in fact the council would like to send a letter to the Senate and to the Assembly, then we cannot do that by consensus, because you do not have consensus, because I just expressed my opposition. We will have to do that by poll vote. So do we have any final public comment? Last shot. Okay, really quick, please.
This is really quick, because if it is a vote against SB 54, then I would urge you to just vote for it. But a letter, to draft a letter, to send it to our representatives, that speaks louder to the rest of our people than just your no vote.
Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
understand. Okay, we have a suggestion of this draft letter, and so I need to hear the will of the council regarding this letter. And if there is nothing, then it will simply die and we will move on.
If we don't send a letter, then that just means we don't really, it doesn't really matter if we just pass a resolution and it sits here. It gets buried, and what we say won't hold any weight. So if we decide to stand against something, we need to speak out. And so I move that we send a letter of opposition to the Senate and the Assembly, and in opposition to Senate Bill 54.
All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Could I ask that it would include verbiage to encourage them to still draft a bill that would protect our immigrants, but not violent criminals?
Well, we could get into the argument of what's violent and what's not anymore. That has changed.
Well, it's protecting violent criminals the way it's written now.
Okay. Yeah, I would support that.
Okay, I have a motion to write a letter of opposition to the Senate and the Assembly regarding SB 54. And you're adding to that motion what exactly?
I'm not trying to complicate this process, but I'm wanting to support that there is good language in there in regard to what we talked about earlier about a crime victim being not or being afraid to report. I'd like to support that part of the bill, but the other poorly written parts of the bill I oppose. So
Okay.
adding some verbiage that would not hinder law enforcement in their tasks, but still support our immigrant communities so they don't live in fear.
Okay. Given the sort of general nature to those concerns, I would say that if in fact that's what is the desire of this motion, if it is approved, we're going to have to bring back a new letter to the council, because just simply giving some general direction to our clerk and putting that responsibility on her or our staff to interpret what we're saying, unless we're going to give specific language that changes the existing letter, then we'll need to put this back onto our next agenda if we're going to change the substance of the letter that is listed in our packet. So if that's your desire, that's certainly fine. But we need to have you provide some of that information so that this letter is clear and concise, and we know exactly what we're voting on.
By doing that, you'd be able to have more outreach from the community in this position anyway. So.
Okay. So I guess I didn't get. Did we have a specific second? I mean, Councilman Greeno made a motion that we send a letter of opposition to the Senate and Assembly. We've had some discussion here, but I have not heard a second to that motion, nor have I heard or if there's a second, that it is conditioned on an amended letter.
Well, the letter as it's written here isn't going to work.
Okay.
So we're going to have to draft a letter anyway. You know, just to keep from complicating things, I'm going to withdraw my second, and I will opt to send my own letter.
Okay. Then without a second, the motion dies, and we will move on to another letter of support that we asked staff to bring back to us. We had a presentation in our last meeting by Benita Cabrera from Seroptimus International regarding trafficking, and you have a letter here that would encourage motel owners to schedule training by Seroptimus on the travesty of trafficking that can affect our community. Do you have any questions about the support letter as it's printed in your packet? Do you have any public comment on the support letter for Seroptimus and their training? All right. Then if we have consensus, we will send this support letter to Seroptimus.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, very good. We have a third letter of support regarding the Del Norte Essential Air Service contract.
I'm sorry. Ms. Cabrera's in the audience, so I just wanted to tell her.
Oh, I'm sorry, Benita, I didn't see you.
Somebody at work approached me about the training that you put on. She was a participant in the training and told me in an account she was in a business in town, overhearing a conversation between two females, and realized what she was hearing, this code. I didn't go through the training, but there's this code that you apparently train your people to recognize. And she recognized what they were talking about, and it was human trafficking. And I just thought you would like to hear that, because as you said before, we don't have any statistics in our community about whether it's going on or whether it's not. But here, just in a matter of days, a little bit of proof that it's going on in our community. So thank you for keeping this up, this work up.
Thank you, Benita. Very good. Thank you, Pro Tem Shirt. That is a very important piece of information to let us know why it's important that that we are supporting our local service organizations who are helping us take care of our community. We have another support letter for the Essential Air Service. The Border Coast Regional Airport Authority recently gave their support to Pan Air for the renewal of the Essential Air Service contract, and we sit on that board. Our council member Keim is a part of that board, and so I think it is appropriate that we also renew our support of Pan Air in their continuing service to our airport. So, any questions about that? Comments from council? Any public comment on us sending a support letter for Pan Air? All right. Are we all, do we have consensus from the council to send this letter?
Yes.
Definitely for me.
All right. Very good.
Yes.
And I believe that brings us all the way to the end of our agenda of items from that standpoint. We do have a couple of committee appointments that need to be made. I would invite one of the council members, if you would join me on the Harbor Ad Hoc Committee to begin talking about mutually related issues between the city and the harbor and the county. Do we have a council member who would be willing to join me on that committee?
What days does it meet? Oh, Jason.
We have not
Okay.
set dates yet, Mr. Coleman.
Okay.
I would be willing.
Okay, Mr. Greeno?
Yeah.
Is it all right with the council if Mr. Greeno joins me on the that
Yeah.
committee? All right, clerk, if you would please recognize that the mayor appoints himself and Councilman Greeno to the Harbor Ad Hoc. At our fee workshop, we talked about the Cultural Center, and if we have two council members who would like to serve and work with our city staff on making some recommendations regarding the Cultural Center, I would certainly take volunteers for that.
I would like to volunteer for that.
Councilmember Kine, do we have anyone else that would like to be on that?
I would. Jason can.
Jeez. All right. Is that in agreement with the council? Sure. All right, then, clerk, if you will please note that the mayor appoints Councilmember Keim and Councilmember Greeno to the Culture Center Ad Hoc Committee. And we've got these other letters, which I did out of order, and apologize for that. Reporting out. It's late, but if council wants to
Excuse
update.
me, Mayor, did you guys move on the Prop 1 letter that Mr. Weir provided you?
Oh, I'm sorry. I got one more letter. I'm sorry. Yes, it's right here, right underneath the letter that you had regarding to the State Water Resource Control Board regarding the IUP for Prop 1. Are we good on sending this letter as it is?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, I have consensus. Thank you for catching that for me. I appreciate that very much. Okay, council, you want to report out quickly on what's been happening in your world for the last week or two? Councilman Greeno, why don't we start with you?
Sure. On May 8th, I attended a budget workshop and pool fees workshop at the fire hall here in Crescent City. It was a very good meeting. We looked at the budget intensively and looked at a lot of the different projects that the city needs to get done in order to keep and maintain our infrastructure. On May 11th, I attended a Del Norte Solid Waste Management Authority meeting at the wastewater treatment plant, and we discussed recycling and the waste, I believe they call it contamination, that has been in our recycling stream that we are trying to remedy. I don't have anything else to report.
All right.
I do want to say one thing, though. The fact that we did not send a letter to oppose Senate Bill 54 is pretty much telling our law enforcement that we don't support them as much as we could.
All right,
That's all I have to say.
thank you. Pro Tem?
Attended the First Friday event. I meant to touch on that last time, but that was a greatly attended event again. I realized that was before the last meeting, but I just wanted to chime in. This last Wednesday, we had both the Redwood Coast Transit and Local Transportation Commission meeting. Redwood Coast Transit has experienced hopefully a one-time reduction in budget of like $130 some $1,000. So we had to do some adjusting and reducing of our routes to try and make up for that. And with that alone, we didn't come close. So we dipped pretty deeply into reserves, hoping that Caltrans is correct and that we will receive that funding again for the next budget year, and no further reductions will be needed. And other than Mother's Day, that is it, sir.
Very good. Councilmember Kine.
Thank you. I attended the BACRA meeting where we voted to have Penn Air as our essential air service carrier. I also attended the Live from Downtown event, Cinco de Mayo. There were a lot of things going on that night, but downtown was happening. I attended the Dancing with the Stars event, and that was very fun. I have to say that the last couple of years they have really made this event quite amazing. There were a lot more people, so good job raising money for the puppies and kittens of Del Norte County. Even though I was up late Saturday night, we went down and cleaned up the part of Front Street where the farmers market is held, the Wednesday downtown farmers market. And if you haven't driven down Front Street, please do. It's covered in California poppies and it's absolutely beautiful. I also attended the budget workshop, which was interesting. Hard work. Let's just leave it at that. And then the Transportation Commission and the Redwood Coast Transit meeting we had back-to-back. And as Pro Tem Short indicated, we had to dip into the reserves pretty deep. I think 60,000. 80? 80. It was a lot. It was a lot. Last Friday, I attended the luncheon, the seminar luncheon that the chamber hosts, and it was all about what economic development is and how it impacts communities. And it was really exciting to listen to the new head of the EDC, which is Roxanne Haynes, and basically she shared the 9 best practices for revitalizing your community and what economic development is. And as she was speaking, I was like, we're doing that. We're doing that. And it was really, and then she indicated that the nonprofit group of women downtown with the Live from Downtown is doing a great job, and that was very rewarding to hear. I also let them know that our city is working on a tree well program and possibly hanging baskets. So that was another feature of revitalizing your local economy that they were very much in support of. So I thought that was pretty exciting to hear that those are all ideas that we have currently in the works. So kudos to the staff. Thank you.
All right, very good. I attended the,
Blake,
I'm sorry.
I gotta go. I gotta do it too.
I was gonna let you go last.
Really?
No, I just forgot.
Were you gonna let me sit in the middle too?
I'm sorry, Mr. Fallman. It's just really, it's hard to follow Councilmember Kime, and I just didn't want to put you through that.
It is. I would almost rather go last
I
now.
know.
Okay. On the 5th,
Sorry, I
mine's
apologize.
shorter than yours too, is the thing.
That's probably good.
Okay. On the 5th, I attended the Live from Downtown event. On the 7th, I met up with Heidi and a few others to help with cleaning up the Front Street area with the Downtown Divas. Then that afternoon, I attended the North Coast Chorale / North Coast Choir Spring Concert. And then on the 10th, I was at the Del Norte Local Transportation Commission meeting where we allocated, and I probably have the number wrong here, but was it 125,000 for Howe Drive pedestrian access?
Yes.
Yeah.
Very
You
good.
left that part out, Darren.
I
Yeah.
forgot to.
Thank you for, that was very good. Thank you for mentioning that. That was I also attended as a guest and very much appreciate the Transportation Commission providing, matching some funds so that we can get the access, beach access on Howe Drive. That will be huge for our community. It's long overdue, as well as the handicap access down by Howe Park West. Attended the literacy symposium, was very impressed with the presentations that were made. And I hope that I have the numbers right, but I think a year ago, we were someplace around 30% of our students were on reading level at grade 3, and that we've moved that dial in 1 year, thanks to efforts of our community and our educators, to over 50%. That is huge. That is something really to be proud of our local educators. So I'm very thankful for that. Attended several other meetings. Did have a recycling workshop. It was well attended by some people who are very, very proficient at doing it right. I wish that the people who struggled with recycling would have been there so that we could help educate a little bit more, because frankly, the people who were in the audience knew more about recycling probably than some of us, because they do it well consistently. But I will put in my every 2-week plug that says, as has already been mentioned, we have got to do a better job. If you're not sure of what it is that you're supposed to be recycling, call the authority, call Recology, let us help you help all of us, because we are still sending way too much to the landfill because of the levels of contamination in our recycling stream. Our target is 10%. At best guess, on residential, commercial, or community bins, the very best guess that we have reached is about 18%. We're still a long ways away. So I just implore the community to continue to work to try to figure out how to recycle appropriately with the items that we now take. And also a reminder that Julindra is still open to receive your recyclables. So don't think that because of the change in the contract with Recology that Julindra is not there. They're still there. You can find out their hours, and they would be happy to help you recycle responsibly. All right.
They don't do a lot of the stuff they used to do.
That is true. The items that they take has changed. And the items that they take are the things that we should be recycling. The items they don't take are the things we can't recycle anymore. So, all right. Thank you all for making it to the end with us. The council is going to be retiring back into closed session, and we may have some action items that we need to report out on. So you're welcome to stay, but I cannot tell you how long we will be.